Startup life is one of the greatest lessons in emuna, quite honestly, that you could ever undertake. There's so many people so much smarter than you, who work harder than you, whose ideas don't seem to take off.
Shalom Aleichem, and welcome to Shark Tank, the podcast about the challenges and opportunities of being a Ben Torah in the workforce. This week's guest is Rav Sam Fromson. I am so excited for this episode because Sam smashes 3 common misconceptions. Number 1, being a rabbi and being a business leader are mutually exclusive. Well, Sam is both the assistant rabbi of a shul in Golders Green, as well as co-founder and COO of a startup called YULife. That's spelled YULife, and no, it has nothing to do with Yeshiva University. Misconception number 2. To do chesed and find meaning at work, you need to either work for a nonprofit or become a doctor. In Sam's case, his venture-backed startup is built on helping people live happier, healthier lives. Number 3. Living healthy is for freaks who get up at 4 a.m. for intense gym workouts. The truth is that taking care of your body is certainly a Torah value, and Sam believes that a healthy lifestyle is more accessible than many of us realize. And I know I said that there are 3 misconceptions, but I'll throw in a bonus. Number 4. London is a dreary and bleak city. Well, Sam is pulsing with light, positivity, and enthusiasm. I loved speaking to him, and I'm sure you will enjoy our conversation. My name is Yaakov Wolf, and this is Shark Tank. And we're here with Rav Sam Fromson. Sam, welcome to Shark Tank. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Yaakov. Such a pleasure to be with you.
So we love having people on this show who are both B'nai Torah and teach Torah and Marbitz Torah, and those who are also connected to the business world and the world outside and find integration. So you are serving actively as a rabbi. You are also a founder and executive of a company. So maybe you could start with a little bit of a timeline as to how these 2 things developed in your life.
Of course, such a pleasure. I never thought I would become a rabbi. That was never the path I expected to go on in life. Studied at, I guess, where in America you'd call a public school. Went to in England you call a private school. So funnily enough, and always learned, and always, Baruch Hashem, my parents always organised Kodesh classes outside of school for me. And I had a wonderful Rabbi who helped me develop an appreciation for Torah from a young age outside of the school context. And I was at a turning point at a teenager, thinking, boy, not that many of my friends were going to yeshiva. It wasn't exactly the expected path, but I took the decision that it was really, I wanted to make sure that my Kodesh was on a par with my secular education, and spend wonderful years in yeshiva before going off to university. And that was really transformational for me at the time. And spent a couple of years in yeshiva Netiv Aryeh by the Old City. And that was a really uplifting, incredible experience. And I went to study natural sciences in Cambridge, a place where there were a few Frum students, but it wasn't a, let's say, place with that many people who were yeshiva oriented. And married in my 3rd year to a woman who was much frummer than me, which is always a good decision in life, is to marry a woman who's much frummer than you. And we decided we'd go back to Eretz Yisrael to study, to learn a bit more. Again, even at the time, wasn't planning on doing smicha, just wanted to learn. Ended up learning in Grus Kolal because just, had friends who'd been at YU, loved the balance there, and did smicha b'chinot because that's what everyone was doing there. Ended up progressing through the smicha b'chinot, and thank God I did smicha, most of my smicha b'chinot there, and then finished off a few more when I was back in the UK, and went into the world of finance. So I started off life professionally in a hedge fund, and that was the kind of track that my friends from university were on, and it was a prestigious fund that I started in. Moved into a family office, and at the same time, though, I felt like something was missing. I'd always been a madrich, always loved not necessarily teaching Torah, but certainly inspiring people from a Jewish perspective and running Jewish experiences as a madrich. I was very involved in a youth movement called BBYO when I was a teenager, and really felt that I was missing that part of my life. And so after having worked for a few years in finance, really felt that part of my life was not being actualized. And I know that's a common experience for people coming from the world of Torah into the secular world. And I felt that maybe there's a way of balancing these 2 things. I applied for a part-time rabbinic job in shuls, and wanted to use the opportunity to learn to teach. Baruch Hashem, found this beautiful community that we're still a part of today in Golders Green, where I'm now the community rabbi, which is the assistant rabbi in the shul, and took a leap into a more flexible working life to facilitate that, which was quite scary at the time. From a sort of full-time salaried role into something a bit more portfolio oriented. I started helping a friend launch his fintech business, launch his startup into the UK. worked on that, helped build that business. And then actually met my co-founder at a Mizrachi Vata Rabbanim. So it was in that kind of Torah context. I met my current co-founder, who also actually has smicha, though has never actually practiced as a community rabbi. And we just had that chemistry, that spark of, this is someone who I can see eye to eye on from a Torah level, from a professional level. And we started building YULife together. And that was 7 years ago. I've been on that journey, balancing ever since.
Wow. And one of the things that I found very interesting in your description there was that you said that many people go into the business world and they feel something's missing, something spiritual that they're not accessing. But the way you said it and the way that you felt it was about inspiring others. It wasn't about your own personal experience. It was about your ability to be a force for good within the broad Jewish community. And you mentioned your background as a madrich, but maybe you could go a little deeper and tell me like where that comes from, what role models you had that specifically the idea of being a mashpia and being a community light and force of energy, that was the point that was missing.
I don't think I've ever articulated it quite like that. It's a really beautiful way of framing it. And thank you for framing it like that. I always have felt within me maybe that desire to create the community that I want to be a part of. My parents, in their own wonderful ways, are incredible in that they do so much for other people. My mum is, was always very successful professionally, but always found time for other people, was always the one dropping off gifts of food to people, helping out elderly people in the community, just quietly going about doing incredible things for others. I found that always very inspiring. I always gravitated to those roles. I found maybe my own personal meaning and my kesher to Judaism, my connection to Kadosh Baruch Hu was stronger through my ability to help and inspire others. And I've always loved those opportunities, even just from a personal perspective. I've just enjoyed them. That was my natiyah. And so you're right. It was my connection to what I felt my avodat HaKodesh to be was in the realm of not only strengthening my own learning, which I think has come as a result of being forced to when you're in a community position, but actually having that opportunity to help and inspire others.
That's very beautiful. So as a community rabbi, tell us a little more about what your responsibilities are, what your favorite parts of the job, your least favorite parts of the job are.
Yeah, it's a diverse role. I teach, which I obviously love. I've got learn with a couple of guys. I give one-off shiurim, drashot, so pulpit sermons. And those are obviously, sometimes it's harder, sometimes it's easier to find the time to prepare to teach at the level I'd like to. But always finding those opportunities. There's the things that are a pain. Community politics, no one ever enjoys. No one ever enjoys when there's arguments over the budget for certain things or politics in that sense, which happens, thank God, very, very rarely. I belong to a beautiful community and the lay leadership are amazing. But the thing I enjoy the most is being present to people's life cycle events, the ability to guide a couple down to the chuppah, Hadrachat Chatan V'Kala, which my wife and I do together. She's qualified as Yuetzet Halacha, and we do that together. And even being there at Levayot and Shivas, I think you can, of all the moments to impact a person's life, you can, 100 hours of teaching is worth the same as one moment at a time when people need you the most. And the hashpah that you can have on someone when they're at that time of real need is I found to be truly a real bracha, a real blessing to be able to participate in those moments and be there for people when they need. And as a community rabbi, that's that kind of, it creates a framework that allows you to live that life of meaning in a very obvious and easy way.
Nice. And a question that I love to ask people who have sort of a rabbinic role, but also a business role, is the question of identity. For some people, it's very simple, like I am a rabbi or I am a professional, but for you, you're both. So do you ever find yourself thinking about that is it a struggle for you at any point, or what's your approach?
It's sometimes it's funny. I never know who's going to be at the other end of the line when I pick up my phone. So I always answer in quite a neutral way. Hello, Sam Fromson speaking. It can be, recommend someone who's passed away or there's a bereaved family member, or it's an investor calling, or it's like a sales cold call. And it's any one of the above. I try not to function as a rabbi for my staff, for the people in my company, though that has happened occasionally with people I'm very close to. I've officiated at the weddings of 3 of my team members, which has been very special, people who I've got a very close relationship with. And also in the shul, people know that I have, it's taken them a while to realize, but eventually people have realized I do have another life outside of the shul. And I think that does help in the way that I can relate to the life situation of the members of my community and the ups and downs of professional world. And, that's something I'm going through on a daily basis as well.
Amazing. So I want to transition to the company that you're currently running for the last 7 years. You mentioned it before. So first of all, let's just start. Can you help me understand how exactly to pronounce the name? At first I thought you ran some sort of club at Yeshiva University, but you don't. So maybe just give us a little bit of background of the name and the company and where the idea came from.
Of course. It's called YULife, and it's the name you, inspiring you to be your best self, putting you at the center of insurance. YULife is an insurance company. We create insurance products that reward you for living a healthier lifestyle. So that combine benefits such as life insurance, health insurance, accident and emergency income protection with technology and a whole experience that rewards you every day for living a healthier lifestyle, that rewards you for walking, for mindfulness, for meditation. And we create those products. We sell them ourselves in the UK. And we also build them in partnership with other insurance companies around the world to deploy in their home markets.
Correct. Sam, where did you get that idea to start a insurance/wellness company?
You know what? My co-founder really is the inception of the idea. He used to be the CEO of another very large life insurance company in the UK called Vitality. I believe you might be familiar with them in the States. They have a partnership with John Hancock in the States, and they create insurance products combined with well-being. A Jewish founded company out of South Africa, and they've been wonderfully successful. And Sammy was the CEO there in the UK. And he left there and was germinating seeds for a new idea. And this idea, this concept of launching a new insurance company based on the ideas of Discovery and others who've done that in the space, but with a much deeper centricity around, deeper focus on technology, how to integrate tech into that everyday experience, focusing on holistic well-being, on your entire self as a person, physical, mental, financial well-being, and how to tie all of those things together and use the power of insurance, which is such a big market, such an incredibly important financial product, harness that for doing good in the world.
And so just to clarify, let's say I were to sign up, who do I sign up with? How do I sign up with? And what does that experience look like when I become a user?
Great. So the majority of our sales are to companies. So your company would buy YULife as an insurance policy for all of the staff. And all of the staff would be covered with life insurance or with health insurance, depending on which product. And alongside, they'd get our app. And our app has this currency of well-being called UCoin. And you earn these UCoin for building everyday healthy habits, for your walking, your mindfulness, your meditation. And that's an incentive because obviously intrinsically you feel good when you do it, but also you can use those UCoin either to do good in the world, plant trees, clean the oceans, donate meals to charity. So it's kind of virtuous cycle there. Or you can cash in the UCoin to look after yourself for Amazon vouchers or, Nike vouchers, something more hedonistic.
Interesting. And so if I understand correctly, the way it works is that as opposed to a normal insurance where the insurance will assess how healthy I am, give me a quote, depending on whatever statistics they have, they'll charge me, they'll insure me, whatever it might be. Here, it's a much more living and breathing organism where the insurance is incentivizing you to always be making yourself healthier. And there's an alignment of sentiment because I want to live a great life. And if the insurance is also incentivized the same way, then we're all trying to get to the same point together.
Beautifully explained. It's really an incredible alignment of interests because we want people to live longer, happier, healthier lives, which is generally what they want for themselves as well. And insurance companies are perfectly incentivized to do that with their customers. So feel very fortunate to be building something that does good in the world like that.
That's so interesting. And I wanted to get your take a little bit on this whole industry of wellness products, and it could have a million different shapes or forms, whether it's foods, whether it's content, whether it's programs, all these different things. When was the first time that you were exposed or thought about this as its own sort of industry or this own unique feature of our modern society?
Yeah, I've always been myself quite focused on health and well-being. I felt it quite internally driven to look after myself in that way. Always used to run or, do triathlons at a young age or gymming or whatever it was. So I think doing it from a young age gave me quite a grounding in it. I was never really into the fads. Like, suddenly everyone's running off and doing it in this way or that way, or you've got to do a specific, precise formula or you don't meet the grade of what's considered currently fashionable. I've always taken it from quite a simple perspective, is that you look after your physical health, exercise, watch what you eat, try and make sure that you sleep enough, and those things kind of take care of it, or with some siyata d'shmaya as well. I never sought to create, and the philosophy of YULife is not to create anything complicated. It's about really simple steps and simple truths, making it easy to access them, making it easy to participate. No, not a high barrier to entry. You don't have to become a marathon runner. You don't have to train in a complicated way. It's about walking, going for a half-hour walk every day, practicing a bit of mindfulness, being thoughtful, and building those habits that you can repeat and scale, because that's what leads to real long-term impact.
Right. And I mean, if a person goes into the app store, there are a million apps for exercise or for all these different things. How are you able to figure out that there is a way to go way beyond, right, what a basic app will basically just like a glorified diary with some checkboxes or whatever, and you've made it so much more impactful by really allowing like very real incentives. How do you figure that out and come to that? And how, I don't know, like it seems like almost too obvious, like in hindsight.
Look, En Chadash Tachat HaShemesh, there's nothing wildly revolutionary about what we're doing. I genuinely think we're there to help people build those everyday healthy habits and use great quality game design and great quality graphics, and to engage with people in a simple and obvious way that makes them feel joy. A lot of health apps kind of focus on making you feel bad about yourself, or unrealistic targets, or pictures of beautiful people exercising. That's very much not our perspective. We have quite childish graphics almost. It's like playful game design. It's not centered on making you look a certain way or feeling bad about not participating. It's about feeling over function, creating a experience that people want to be a part of, and understanding that sometimes you need some extrinsic motivation to nudge people in the right direction. And even if it's a small amount of physical cash, but it's actually representative of baby steps towards a bigger goal, planting one tree for walking for 10 minutes. It's beautiful. That's a really easy concept. People can wrap their head around it, and it allows you to develop a habit. And when you, just as with anything in life, if you can create a habit around it, then that's what drives long-term change.
And when you develop a product, a technology that you're rolling out, you're scaling, how do you account for the fact that everyone's different, right? Not only physically, but also emotionally and socially. Everyone has different habits, different things that motivate them. So how do you account for that?
That's a great question. We really think about that in our game design, and have to really credit my colleague Josh Hart, who's our Chief Product and Technology Officer. He's the genius behind the game design. So I'm really channeling his energy as I'm saying this, is that he talks about different types of player types, the fundamental psychologies of what drives people to play games. There are those who want to explore environments and progress, and just sort of, explore a specific domain and find out all the nuances and the hidden clues hidden there. Some people like to progress through levels. Others take a competitive approach. They want to beat their friends, beat their colleagues. And we've built different features that speak to each of those psychologies, leaderboards, progression through different levels, and all of those aspects that allow different game psychology to be captured in the experience, coupled with, of course, the fundamental reward loop of that extrinsic motivation of earning Ucoin to reward you for building those healthy habits.
And you run some sort of questionnaire in the beginning, or as things go along, you're able to pick up on clues as to what type of person the user is?
All of the features are available to everyone, and different people naturally gravitate towards different parts of the experience. And some people participate in all of them, but have a closer leaning towards other types of it. And that's what really motivates them to continue to play and to continue to engage in the experience.
And you built this business model where people are basically getting paid small amounts, but they're basically getting paid to exercise and do things that everyone else wants to do anyway. So I'm sure that's really helpful. Is that available to anyone? Could I right now in Israel figure out a way to, how are we getting this to more people?
Yeah, please God, we do not currently operate in Israel. It's a closed app. It's only available to our customers, because obviously we need to fund the rewards from something, and the rewards are currently funded through people purchasing an insurance policy. That's the way that we kind of fund the whole system, and we only sell insurance policies in the markets that we're regulated to do so, with partners that we currently have. Who knows, we may come to Israel if we find the right insurance carrier partner in Israel. But at the moment, we're active in the UK, in South Africa, in Japan, and in the USA.
Very nice. And the idea seems so brilliant and so wonderful, but my limited knowledge of the world of startups is that there are a million great ideas that live in the graveyards of the Silicon Valley or Tel Aviv or wherever other place. And so it's interesting because you are the COO. So that's basically your responsibility over the last 7 years of actually making a great idea into an actual business. So can you reflect on that angle of the startup life?
Yeah, of course. And this is something that, startup life is one of the greatest lessons in emuna, quite honestly, that you could ever undertake. Because as you said, there's so many people so much smarter than you, who work harder than you, whose ideas don't seem to take off. On the flip side, other people who seem to cruise into, hundreds of millions of pounds of fundraising in what looks like effortlessly, though I'm sure behind the scenes they're also working incredibly hard on. We were very fortunate at the beginning to find exceptional venture capital partners who believed in the mission. We assembled a strong team from the get-go, and the market obviously is a very big market to address. And that's really the key components of getting an idea off the ground in the eyes of a venture capital partner, is having a great team and a big market and the scale of the ambition. So from early on, we were able to secure some great venture capital partners, local globe, who invested us at the very beginning and gave us the oomph to get started. And as we've gone on the journey, each time we've needed to fundraise or, been in those crunch moments, which happen regularly in startup life, we've had amazing hashgacha. The kind of things have worked out in the right way. We know there's one time when it was slightly harder to find the right partner for us, and then we decided maybe now's not the right time to fundraise. We're going to focus on building and growing the business, growing the revenues, and made that decision that we weren't going to fundraise. The next day, out of the blue, I get a phone call from someone I'd met at a conference 5 years ago who said, "Oh, these guys want to meet you. They're interested in talking." And one thing led to another. It progressed into a Series C and $100 million fundraise. It's quite astonishing, and you've just got to put in the effort and really focus on doing good and focusing on trying to act in the right way and building and putting your absolute maximum effort in, understanding that it's really not in your control. And I think that's more true. Many careers are a bit more linear, and growing a startup is certainly not.
Well, and when you talk about health and living well and being practical in those goals, how does that work? Is there someone on your team who's like researching what the best practices are as far as what really works? Because as you mentioned, there are these fads, and maybe I need to dump in this type of ice bath for this amount of minutes and then go into this type of whatever. So like, how are you making sure that you're, I guess, grounded in science and making sure that you're actually doing good for people?
Yeah, we've kept true to a very simple philosophy, right? Of World Health Organization, minimum levels of physical activity per week, recommended amount of sleep per week, really keeping it simple. We are not into pushing people towards faddish things or obviously everyone has their own path to well-being, and you can find, shiv and panim the well-being, right? You can find it in every different way. But for our philosophy is to make it really simple and repeatable, things that anybody could do on a regular basis with no high barrier to entry.
And especially in the Jewish community, and I'm sure this is true for other people in different countries and areas as well, there's a very strong force of community that can drive a lot of our behaviors and our actions. So are there any communal activities or habits or norms that from a health and well-being perspective, you would just like completely tear out of our lexicon?
Things that I would encourage people not to do, are you saying, that as a community?
You could make it positive if you want.
Yeah, I think I'll stick to the positive. That's always my positive angle. I think that things that encourage people to spend more time outdoors, things that encourage people to walk more, things that encourage people to spend time playing actively rather than when they do have downtime or leisure time focused on gaming, or maybe that's not as, depends on which community you're referencing. But for us, we operate within companies often, and our product deploys within a company. We're encouraging people to do walking meetings, people to take 5 minutes at the end of the day and do a mindfulness session to help unwind after the stresses of life, to allow you to then be more present with your family when you get home. In the Jewish community, though, nutrition is something obviously crucially important for your long-term well-being. If I was to be advocating for policy in the broader community, I would say that people to really be mindful of portion sizes, mindful of physical activity, taking time every day to do something that's good for your health. And if you think about it like that, just do one thing every day that's good for your health, rather than putting a lot of pressure on you for it to be a complicated gym regime and personal trainer. Those are great, of course, if you have access to them. But even in absence, something every day that you can build on, that you can do that's good for your health, for your well-being, physical, mental, social, that's what will lead to long-term effects.
Right. And you mentioned stress, which is very interesting. It's a topic I've thought about a lot. And I guess, right, there are certain things that can help you release stress. And then you could also prevent stress from building up in the first place. So how do you think about the role of stress in our lives? Because, some people have said that stress is underratedly a very central part of a lot of the issues and problems that we struggle with.
I think that's very true. I think you can have two people doing exactly the same set of activities, working the same hours, having the same childcare responsibilities. Thank God we've got 4 children and a busy household. You have two people doing exactly the same life, and one person can find it unbearable and be at the point of breaking, and the other person can be cruising through, well, not cruising through, but, finding it manageable and being able to thrive in that environment. So I think stress is different for every person. What causes stress is different for every person. It comes down to your fundamental beliefs in some ways about the world. One thing that helps me and has helped me and continues to help me is that framing of I get to versus I've got to. If you say, I've got to do this, I've got to take the kids now, I've got to put out this next email, I've got to send my investor update, I've got to make sure I've made payroll, all of those I've got to's, those are quite stress inducing because it's a pressure on yourself. To the extent that I can, I try and reframe it as I get to. Baruch Hashem, I get to take my kids to school this morning. I mean, so many people don't have that opportunity. I get to be there for my employees. So many people, they can't do that in that way, or they're not in that position. I get to, and even if you take the two same scenarios and reframe it from got to I get to, that can be a huge stress reliever because it puts you in the position of empowerment in the situation. It gives you the choice. You are making an active choice to do this. And because you get to do it, and it's a blessing to be able to, that can reframe what might be a really tough situation. I've got to fire someone. Hashem Yishmor, that's really tough. It's like you're thinking of their family, you're thinking of the impact on them, and you've got to do it with compassion. But at the same time, I get to do it in a compassionate way. I get to, hopefully, in this awful moment in that person's life, soften the blow or make them realize that it's not about them, it's just about the fit for the role or whatever it might be, and help them onto their next stage of the journey in a way that hopefully they'll remember. That framing for me is powerful.
And if I understood correctly, the knee-jerk reaction to having to wake up in the middle of the night with a screaming child is going to be negative, or the knee-jerk reaction to having to fire someone is going to be negative. The one of the things that I found so interesting what you said is the fact that you need to sort of take a deep breath, think about it for like 3 or 4 seconds, and then it's a lot easier to make that switch and to reframe, as you're saying, which I'm not a mindfulness expert, but is that basically an exercise in mindfulness in not rushing into the instinctive reaction and situation, but sort of taking a deep breath and thinking about it with a bit of a clear head?
However it works for you, right? I'm not also a mindfulness expert. I mean, I do my best to daven, I do my best to be mindful in my brachot tefillot, but I'm certainly not an expert in mindfulness. It's an incredibly rich discipline. But you're right. It's very similar to that. It's the same as when, before you eat, you say a bracha. Before you do anything, you take scope, take stock, what it is that you're doing, and try and do it with the right kavanah. And as with many things, it's a muscle that you can train. I'm not perfect on this, so please do not listen to this thinking that, oh my gosh, Sam has got this sorted. I promise you, I am sharing my own ambitions for how I see the world rather than how I succeed at going about it every day. But it's a muscle that you train, and the more that you do it, the more you see the world like that, and the more easier it is to latch on to that worldview in a moment of stress, so to speak. And you see Rabbi, you see people who've got an incredible midot. How do they manage to keep such incredible midot in such difficult situations? I presume they've just spent a very long time really training that muscle.
I appreciate it. Got it. And maybe just going beyond YULife, just you as a person, as a rabbi, as a person in the Jewish community, how do you think about the idea of self-care and how we balance it with the idea of community? So a great just example to think about it is sleep. So if a person is very into self-care, they're going to make sure they have enough sleep. If a person is very into community, there are late night meetings and there's chesed to do and there's all these things going on. So how do you think about balancing those two things?
When I get the answer, I'll tell you, Mamish. It's like the Shvila Zahav Beneyen. You have to look after yourself, otherwise you can't be there for others. You can't, if you don't fill up the cup, you can't be there to give. So for each person, that's different. Some people truly can manage off 4 or 5 hours sleep, and they're incredible for doing that. I can't really function with less than 6.5 hours sleep. So I know that if it's getting to 11 o'clock, I'm going to need to start wrapping up whatever I'm doing because my kids will be awake by 6. And that's just the balance that I need to strike for myself to be continually productive. But everyone has to find their own happy medium there and to be kind to themselves and be sensitive to what they fundamentally need, and not to look at some incredible role model who's able to manage on 4 hours a night and say, oh, I wish I was like that. Because maybe you are, and if so, amazing. But if not, you're just going to burn yourself out. You're not going to be at your best. You're not going to be able to perform. You're not going to be mentally acute in the moments when you need it. And it's being just about being understanding of your own limitations, whilst also not shying away from the hard work that's needed.
And as far as your role in the business world, you're doing so much good work, and it really breaks maybe a stereotype that guys maybe in yeshiva or beyond yeshiva have, which is that, work is just a means, right? Work, real meaning comes from our spiritual lives, and work is just a means to fund that and to have parnasa. And people will say, well, if you want a job with meaning and professional life with meaning, so you should either be a rabbi or maybe a doctor or run a chesed organization. But you're running a for-profit organization. I think you guys are making money, although I don't know. So
Doing our best.
can you reflect on that dynamic and what maybe takeaways might be for others who want to have meaning? They also want to make money. They also want to be frum. Like, how does that all wrap together?
Yeah, I think it's a really powerful question. Ultimately, if you think what's the first question you get asked when you get up to Shemayim is Masa Mata Emuna, is did you deal faithfully in business? On the one hand, that's of course asking, did you cheat or did you use balanced weights? But more than that is, did you treat your business dealings with Emuna, with faith in Hashem? And that creates an incredible opportunity. If you're entering into the workplace from a position of Emuna, the people that you impact around you can have incredible hashpah, incredible influence from that. Your clients, your customers, your colleagues, those are all those are the interactions that God wants of us to have an impact in the world around us. I think we're very fortunate that the fundamental identity of our business and the core product itself is one that we're seeking to deploy to do good in the world, of improving people's health and well-being, helping them live happier, healthier lives. And that's a privilege. I really feel fortunate to be building a business with that intent. But I see incredible people building all sorts of businesses who have incredible meaning in it because of the way that they're going about it and the people that they're influencing and the Kiddush Hashem that comes as a result of it. And it's the core of the product and the core of what you're doing. It might be harder to find that sense of meaning in if you really believe that the industry you're operating in is unethical in some reason. That might be really hard. But in most normal, quote unquote, normal business environments, I think there's amazing meaning to be found. And that's something that we should be aspiring to. Because God forbid, you shouldn't want to treat a part of your life as b'diavad. It really is l'cha'achila. That's what's God intended of us, is to work and to be financially supporting those around where it's appropriate, where we can do, and at the same time to live lives engaged with learning and Torah.
And maybe another way to frame this same topic and to think about it a little bit differently is that someone might be listening to your description of what your job and what you go to the office every day to do, and they might think, wow, like if I was able to do that, to work for a for-profit company that's making money and making people's lives better, I would be happy if I were able to work at a company like Sam's. And maybe you can reflect on that. Like, I'm sure, are all of your employees that get to work for you actually happy? Or is there something else that happiness really comes from other things? And maybe some people who, even working at a wonderful company like yours, can still find themselves down and depressed.
We don't get it right the whole time. I have got no doubt. And also, everyone's going through their own personal journeys. Everyone's got their own personal struggles. I'm doing my best to talk about the business, but you can ask my employees, and I'm certainly not perfect. We definitely do make mistakes, and that obviously, impacts people when, we're setting too high a targets and people are striving for something they can't achieve, or, we forget to be appreciative of someone who really deserves gratitude for the hard work they put into a project. Those can cause the ups and downs of life. You say we're making money. We're a venture-backed business. We're still in the loss-making growth phase of that. B'ezrat Hashem, I think we've got incredible prospects and amazing partners and a great growth trajectory. And we're on stable footing from that perspective, but we are still a loss-making startup, and that does have its pressures. And I'm sure the people in the team, and myself included, we feel that pressure. So I do believe that the majority of people at YULife are inspired by the mission and believe in it. And we do employee NPS scores and pulse surveys to learn more about that and dig deeper into the data. And I think we do pretty well on those surveys. But it's a constant challenge. We are really putting in a lot of hard work, please God, to achieve something and to make change in a very big, very old industry. And that's not easy.
We're going to go to our lightning round. So we're going to have 3 short questions with 3 short answers. We're in the winter, so we have long Friday nights. So how do you like to spend that time on Friday nights and after your Suda?
Often we'll have large amounts of guests at our meals. That can happen quite frequently. We might have all the youth from the community come round for Friday night dinner, 20 kids around our table, which is beautiful when we do that. And then the meal goes on till late, and the kids are trying to do a bit of singing and some maybe some stories or words of Torah, and that's lovely. I really enjoy those long meals. My kids have a great time because they get to hang out with the youth in the community. If it's just a quiet one, it's just us around the table, then I love singing. I love Zmirat, and so we'll do my best to get my kids involved in that as well. They're 11, 8, 5, and 3, so depends on their level of patience for it. And then playing games, play backgammon or cards or sit and read books happily together once the little ones have gone to bed. And that's a real pleasure.
Okay, what's your favorite sefer to teach and give shiurim on?
The sefer I'm enjoying most to give shiurim right now is Rambam's Mishnah Torah. Quite honestly, I love learning that with the guys because it's designed to be a summary of all of Judaism. And so we start at the very beginning of Mother, we're just going through it, step by step, and it's an incredible way of getting the overview of all of Torah in a really clear, thoughtful, and the words of the Rambam are obviously designed for that, and it's a really beautiful sefer to learn with the Chabura.
Amazing. And if you were forced to quit your job today, but you can choose any job in the world in any industry that you have not yet experienced and touched, what would that be?
Or any experience. I mean, I've always dreamed of running a school. I would love to run a school one day. Maybe a primary school where you could get those kids with their first impressions of learning, first impressions of Torah, first impressions of life, and help shape that. Don't know if that's on the cards for me. I think I'm past the stage of perhaps of training as a teacher and doing that, but that was always a pipe dream at some point, was to run a school.
Okay. Sam Fromson, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for all of your beautiful insights and ideas.
Thanks so much, Jack. Really a pleasure to be with you.